We're joined today with a very special person. He's the principal of our #1 international Ray White business, David Walker from Ray White Upper North Shore. Thanks for joining us here today, David.
Pleasure to be here.
So, Dave, what your business represents is a really cool story within the Ray White network because you lead from the front, you're an incredible rider by your own regard, but the business that you have underneath you has more elites and chairman elites than any other business inside of the Ray White network. More than 13 of your 19 salespeople represented in elite or chairman elite status. What I want to talk to you about today is how we've managed to build this team, manage such high performance culture, and I guess how we've managed to sustain that in a marketplace that is becoming a little bit more uncertain and turbulent. So let's start with the market we're in. Explain the Upper North Shore for those that aren't from Sydney.
Yeah, look, Upper North Shore market, we're the northern part of Sydney, so we're about 30 minutes from the CBD. We've got private schools, we're on the train line. It's very leafy, average block size of about 1,000 square metres. We've got some beautiful properties, but price ranges anywhere from $1.5 up to $15 million. So it's the best part of the best city, the best country in the world. So we're very lucky to sell real estate here.
So the story of the Upper North Shore business is a great one because it's so easy to look at it now. You're the #1 business internationally, but it started from a garage up in Wahroonga.
Yes, that's right.
So, let's start at the origin story. Like, where did it begin? What was sort of day one of Ray White Upper Shore or Ray White Wahroonga at that point in time?
Yeah, well, so I was working at Ray White Turramurra and decided back about 8 years ago to start Ray White Wahroonga with my principal at the time. So we didn't have an office space, so we actually went out of the garage of Ray White Turramurra. And then we eventually found some office in Wahroonga, opened the business at about 50 square metres, started out. I was the one salesperson with a couple of associates, and then ended up going into business partnership with Greg Windell, who worked out of Ray White Turramurra, and we bought out the principal and we built the business from there.
I think it's really important we talk about Greg because as a selling principal, you've always wanted to lead from the front and you've done so. You've always taken out, if not one of our #1, #2, #3 selling principals inside the network, certainly New South Wales. What's the importance of having someone that's able to work outside of the selling side of the business to keep the team balanced?
Yeah, look, you need the person who's sort of steering the ship a bit. The salespeople, they're the ones that are really getting in and writing the numbers. You've got the admin behind the scenes. You've got the rental department. You've got everybody who plays their role. Greg and I, in terms of me writing the business and him running the business, and then another business partner, Matt Boland, that came on board a couple of years into the business building. But everyone has a key role and has had a key role in the building of the business.
So when you consider your journey of leadership, right, there's a lot of great salespeople, but it's really hard to translate sometimes a good selling individual to a selling principal or a selling leader. What were some of the mistakes you might have made or lessons you might have learned as you started to learn the difference between being a great salesperson to a great sales leader?
I've made many mistakes. I think that's one of the great parts of becoming a business owner for me, because you do change a lot as a person. The reason that early on I understood that I was getting more excited for other people's success. So people that get into start businesses where they're just focused on building their own business and they're only focused on their own sales, I think they may not be right for leadership. But early on, I could see that I really got a kick out of helping build salespeople's teams. And I get a thrill even to this day when I get a call at 9 o'clock at night from one of the salespeople within the business who's just had a win, who's got a deal over the line, and they're really excited, and I get excited for them.
And the best thing about your team, because as we start to talk about, well, how do we build such a behemoth of a business, right? It wasn't that long ago you've started a variation of growing individuals within your team to recruiting other experienced agents, the attraction business model. But you had a very aggressive growth plan in terms of build it and they'll come mentality, right? So let's talk about the first office to the second office and how you strategically went about growing your business about geography.
Yeah, sure. So We had a view early on that we didn't want to just go out and get bums on seats, and I think that's been the mentality of a lot of business owners over the years. It's just, let's get anyone in, get anyone on a seat and put them in an area, and some income's better than no income. We looked at it a very different way, in that we wanted to get the right people in, give them bigger farm areas to work, and let them really become the person within that area that can be seen as the market leader. And by not just putting bums on seats, you weren't then restricting how much somebody could build in an area. So we started off by really trying to get the formula right with me and my own team, building my own team, some of the agents within the business, helping them build their teams, some of the people that have come through my team, helping them then build their own teams. Once we had that formula down pat, it was easy to then go out and try and recruit people. Well, not easy, but we could then sit down and have a conversation to be able to show people what we could do to help them build their own business. A lot of people recruit these days by going out and just offering bigger commission splits and trying to entice people on just making more money out of what they're already doing. Mm-hmm. Whereas we looked at it a very different way, in that we wanted to show people how we could not just give them a better commission split, we wanted to show them how they could double, triple their business.
Now, whatever this model is, I'm sure everyone's keen, is obviously worked. I mean, you're working in marketplaces comparatively that are substantially larger than your average sort of shops or your average kind of suburbs, highly competitive, a lot of highly skilled agents as well. Now, your business has been able to get 20, 30, in some cases 40% market share of these incredibly strong marketplaces by continuing to grow off the back of the success of your core marketplaces. So let's just start to talk about farm areas. You believe in farm areas?
Oh, we call them areas of influence.
Okay.
So farm areas have often, in real estate businesses, have just been an area that no one else is allowed to touch.
Yep.
Whereas we call them areas of influence, where somebody can work that area. Another person within the business can still work it. We don't recommend they do, because if the person that's working an area within the business and they're doing it successfully, then there's no point in somebody else coming in. But what it's stopped is somebody going in saying, well, this is my area, no one else can touch it.
Got it.
But no other agent's going to want to work an area that somebody's working really well. So it forces the person to remain strong within that area.
So with that, you've personally been able to build a lot of successful agents from underneath you. So in the last year, more than 100 transactions in this marketplace, incredible. You've still managed to continue your personal sales growth whilst bringing others through and allowing them to write multi-million-dollar deals as well, and multi-million-dollar GCI years. So what does that model look like? How does someone grow from within your team where that you can still continue to grow your business and they can go out and grow their business?
Well, as a business owner, I want to try and harvest people into becoming really good salespeople and build their own team. So you never, as a business owner, you can't be more proud of somebody that is able to go and achieve after working their way through your team and doing it in the right way. So the model really comes down to trying to work out what your weaknesses are, because if you work out what your weaknesses are as a salesperson, putting people in the right roles to be able to offset your weaknesses. So essentially, most salespeople aren't very good at admin, and they're not very good at finding business. Well, they can prospect. They might be good at prospecting, but it doesn't happen on a continuous basis. So what we do is we work out where somebody's strengths might be, really encourage that they focus on their strengths, but then be honest about where their weaknesses are and try and help them plug the holes with their weaknesses and plug the holes within their business, which is introducing people who might bring the right energy, might bring the right type of demeanor that really helps them write more business.
And I love this because talking about the culture of the team we've built, it's astounding that we've managed to do the volume that we've done with not actually that many agents. It's not like you've got 100 agents. Like you say, you've got 19 producers. It's really about the right people, quantity or quality over quantity. So, what is the qualities that you look for when you're saying this is the kind of people we really want to invest in and they fit the culture of the business?
Look, culture is a word that's thrown around quite a bit, especially in our industry. For us, the people that we like, they might not necessarily, when we meet them, they might not be the ones that are writing the most business, but it's the people that are good people, that are hungry in terms of wanting to get out there and give it a really good crack. We have honest conversations where somebody might say, I don't want to be $1 million agent, and that's okay. But if they can get in, they want to do the work, they're good with their clients, they're a good fit, they're a team player. For us, being a team player is really, really important. If they fit those sort of parameters, then we will welcome them with open arms. But also we don't want to put somebody in the business that's going to compromise somebody else within the business and the ability they have to write business. So
explain what you mean by that. I think that's a really good point.
So if we're talking to people that are coming in, we want them to be able to come in to help the business write, or help other salespeople within the business write more business. They're not going to, if there's an overlap, it might be an overlap that essentially could mean that two people within the same type of area, they might compete, but not all the time. You wouldn't want two people that are just in the same core market coming in and then fighting over each other for data. That's just never going to work. An interesting setup, and this is one of the growth phases we went through. We had two of the biggest competitors in the St. Ives market who they used to compete against each other, but were friendly. We spoke to them, and they had actually had a prior relationship. And we managed to bring the two biggest competitors in a suburb, and a whole suburb, and St. Ives is one of the biggest suburbs in Sydney, but brought them together and split the suburb down the middle and brought them together to establish our St. Ives office. And since then, we've brought a couple of other agents within that office into the business, and that St. Ives office is the number one office within the St. Ives market.
There you go.
Just by bringing 3 or 4 good, solid performers in, and bring them together and creating the right culture and setting clear boundaries for each other.
Now, this is a really cool point, right? Because some people think that more is more. It's kind of like the scarcity mentality, and others might look at that and they might say, well, the abundance mentality is, well, how do we both be more successful by being on the same team? Now, this must come up a lot in your business because you've got 30% market share of most of your core marketplaces. Crossing over is inevitable. You've got 19 high quality producers. How do you go about building that culture where they see that we're better off and stronger together versus, well, going down the road, I'll compete against you rather than with you?
Yeah, look, we have had people within the business that have gone that way. But essentially, by having high performing agents within the business, and not really having a culture around just will accept mediocrity, means you're in an environment where you're respecting the people within the business, you're learning from the people within the business, but also to have the type of humble individuals that we do have within the business that it's not about themselves, it's not about their egos, it's not about how good they're going. Everyone does come together to help each other out. And everyone is genuinely excited for other people's success.
I think that when I think about your business, humility seems to be probably at the top of the list there. What are you doing when you got a whole bunch of high performers? There's a lot of egos. I'm sure that at the heart of it, that's where they want to be. But surely every now and again, a couple of these high performers, the ego can get in the way. And how do you manage that?
Well, I think, look, most top performing salespeople, they're going to have an ego to a point. But when the ego gets in the way of, no one is bigger than the business. So if the ego tends to override that, then that's when we've got a problem. So we had a situation last year where somebody within the business was not really a team player and not respected by the rest of the people within the business. And so we had to make the decision that person wasn't right for the culture. And we did make the decision, and they were a high performing agent. Still a high performing agent, but just not right for our culture. So it's just one of those decisions that you have to make that sometimes are a hard decision at the time, but ultimately can make the business stronger.
It's a bit of a phrase, right? That inside the forest, sometimes you cut down a tree and then it allows the seedlings to rise, right? We've got plenty of cases where that started to happen. Did you find much the same when sometimes you've got to create the space to allow others to grow?
Absolutely, yeah. And you actually don't realise that there might be a systemic problem until it's gone. And so once that does happen and you can see that the decision, so when we made that decision, it really, to see the people come out from the woodwork within the business going, thank you for making that decision, just showed that it was the right call. So it's a really how to say, the moment that we made that decision was a difficult one, but after doing it and seeing the reaction of everyone in the business, we realised it was the right thing moving forward. And I think for our business, it was probably the moment that I really understood that culture is more important than anything.
So I'm really interested about the role of you as a selling principal, and I guess where you're heading, because you've hit a beautiful maturity inside of the business. You've always been the number one writer inside of the business, but even talking just now, you know, the progression of what you're hoping to achieve as a writer versus what the business is hoping to achieve, maybe your priorities are starting to shift as you start to want others to start to rise up. Can you talk about, I guess, the journey of you as a great writer versus, I guess, maybe what the next 10 years might look like, and, you know, the battles or the challenges that might come with that?
Yeah, sure. The thing is, as a salesperson, you're always going to have that inherent want to get out and to list and sell, and I love listing and selling, but I also equally, if not more, love watching other people do it and do it really well, and love being able to help in any way I can. In terms of helping somebody else really get to the point in their career they want to get to. So the next 10 years is a difficult one to know where we're up to today, let alone 10 years time. But I would see we really want to look at opportunities in terms of good growth, not just growth for the sake of growth, but make sure that everyone within our business is achieving what they want to achieve, making sure the teams around them are strong, making sure that we can deliver on what we're making, being value add for their businesses, because I think essentially a lot of principals these days, they're just opening the doors and expecting that the salespeople are going to remain happy because they're offering them a desk. Whereas I think the pressure on principals these days to show their value and prove their value to salespeople is there. So you need to be providing training, you need to be providing the opportunity for growth, you need to be providing an environment where people can really have mental stability as well, because our industry is one that takes a lot out of you. So if as a principal you're not aware of that and you're not conscious of that, then you might have some problems on your hands. So we really want to, as a business, make sure that we're got the recognition right. We're giving people we want people to feel that they're valued within the business. So. There's all these little things that you need to do as a principal, just like as a sales agent, all these little things you need to do along the journey. But as a principal and as business owners, we're really focusing on that.
So I want to take a little bit of a right-hand turn here and talking a little bit more about the development of this high performance culture. And one of the things you said to me a couple of years ago, it stuck with me. I asked you, you know, as someone that has a lot of multi-million-dollar writers in your business, well, what's the difference between someone that writes 1 million and say 2 million, or 1 million and 3 million? And your response, I don't know if you remember, was, well, the skill set's not that different. It's just their belief on how far they want to push it. And I guess I'm really interested when you consider you've got more experience developing multi-million-dollar writers than arguably anyone else in New South Wales. You know, do you think that mentality of the identification of those people, can you see that from day one? What are the traits that you think make these people unique?
The number one thing I think is their belief.
Yeah.
If somebody believes they can do it, and not just this, oh yeah, I can do it, but it's an inherent belief that's within yourself. So what I try and do with our salespeople is give them the belief that they can do it. So because if they believe it, then they're going to actually invest in doing it. They're going to be sitting there at their desk going, I can do this, I can get this listing, I can make this sale. If they don't believe it, then more often than not, other people aren't going to believe it either. And it's not a belief of, oh yeah, I think I can. It's a belief that you know you can. It's not, and there's a big difference between confidence and arrogance. So it's the way you handle yourself when no one's looking, and it's what you believe when no one's looking that will put you in good stead. So that's where I think the belief's the number one thing a good salesperson will have, and it's very different to an arrogance.
And the environment, speaking of belief, you know, it's interesting. It's kind of like if you want to play better golf, play with better golfers. The environment of being surrounded by, like we say, 13 people that are at the top of the Ray White network. If you can see that it's not just one person doing it, it's not just Dave doing it, I've got 9 other chairman elites doing this, that must make it, the belief, a lot easier.
Yeah. Well, I think for people within our business, seeing other people do it, it's the 4-minute mile analogy.
Yep.
If once it's done and people can see that it's getting done, they then realise that the standards that they have to increase to or get to, it's just a formula. So I think there's a lot of offices out there that if you're writing a couple of $100,000 within that office, you're the king or queen of that office. So whereas within our business, you've got people writing up to $5 million. Average agent within the business is writing $1 million. So it's sort of, if you want to be in a culture and an environment where other people are doing really well, it's going to just lift you up naturally.
So as we sort of get into the conclusion of this, I want to talk about that word investment that you've just said before. And especially as we head into a marketplace where there's not as many sales, the GCI is going to come back a little bit. You know, the sun has come off the real estate industry a little bit, but there's still plenty of opportunities out there. You know, as a leader, it's one thing. As a team and as a culture, what kind of messages are you doing to create the confidence that growth is still possible in these marketplaces?
Huge opportunity in the market we're going into. The agents that are going to do better over the next 12 months are the ones that are able to have honest conversations. Mm-hmm. And that's when you're listing a property, you're having an honest conversation. When you've got the property on the market, you're having an honest conversation. I think there's been a lot of agents in the last 12, 18 months that have been able to just list something and sell it because the market's been good. But now when you're not delivering the best news all the time, it's delivering news in the right way, mm-hmm. But in an honest way as well. So, and it's not this old school mentality of just, you know, get a price reduction, sell it quickly. It's none of that crap that I think a lot of our industry try and move forward with, because then you're not going to get the repeat business, and it's really a short-term and small-minded way of thinking. But if you can list properties in a way that you're doing the right thing for the owners, you're doing it in an honest way, and then giving honest feedback and able to deliver honest feedback well, then the owners are going to understand that you're there working for them and trying to get the best outcome.
I think the best language that I've heard that's, I guess, the ingredient for success in this marketplace is the word courage. Having the courage to go out there and be brave, to actually tell the truth, not to avoid the tough conversations, and obviously help people with their outcomes. So as we move into the final part of this interview here, you've got a team, you've got people that are wanting to get into the industry, you've got up and comers. What are you getting them to focus on right now in terms of growing their business, growing their team? A lot of businesses, a lot of people, they're probably thinking, oh, I need to make my team smaller. I need to stop investing in my business. I need to reduce my investment into my growth because the opportunity might not be there. I think that's a different message to what you're saying at the moment.
Oh, absolutely. Right now, it's all about the 1%ers.
Yeah.
You need your team around you for a few different reasons. The reason I love my team, and personally in terms of my own sales team, is they actually hold me accountable. So by having people that you're seeing every day, they know what I'm doing, I know what they're doing. Having a sales team around you means that you're actually forced to do the work. Mm-hmm. So if you go and don't invest in people, then yes, you can then slacken off for a day, but if you're paying salaries, you're not going to slacken off. So there's only one person in real estate you're competing with, and that's yourself. The moment you think you're in competition with anyone else is the moment you're not going to grow. So if you can start growing your team, not by way of just getting another person on, but by way of looking where your strengths lie and where your weaknesses lie, and then building people around you that can help with your weaknesses, you'll really then start building a team that's going to help you move forward. So the market we're going into, it's the perfect time to be growing.
Love that. A few words that have stood out to me in this interview: belief, courage, not accepting mediocrity, and I guess having that, a bigger future or a bigger dream of the future than you might have for yourself. What a fantastic time to be out in the real estate market. Thank you for sharing your insights, Dave, and good luck with the next year.
Pleasure. Thanks, Tim.
Pleasure.